All right, Sierra, let's take a minute to talk about what I'm seeing here in hopes that this will help you improve on your future journal assignments and just overall with your writing. So, one of the things you want to be conscious of is that there are two voices that you're writing about in this response. So, there's Sierra, right? This is what you're saying. The best piece of advice I've ever received would have to be. And then there's your grandmother's voice. Like, this is what she actually said to you. And I know that because you put it in quotation marks. So the quotation marks in general indicate that this is somebody else's voice, but you also have to transition out of your voice. And I sometimes like to equate it to changing clothes. So let's say you're borrowing somebody's boots. Well, you're not just gonna put their boots on top of your boots. You're gonna take your boots off, then put their boots on. To take your boots off, in terms of punctuation, you need a comma. So when you're transitioning out of your voice, you use a comma. When you're starting their voice, you use the quotation marks. And you just want to keep that in mind in the future when you're using quotes. One of the other things I want to talk to you about are coordinating conjunctions. So, in this sentence, or in what your grandmother's saying, there's something called the implied you. I don't have a subject. You didn't write, she said, Sierra, leave the past in the past. But it's understood that because she's talking to you, that you are who the subject is. Even though you don't have it written there, it's implied. And if it's implied in two places, you need a comma. So there's a set of words, they're called coordinating conjunctions. The best way to remember them is to think of the acronym fanboys. They're the words for and nor, but, or, yet, and so. If you have those words and you have you on both sides of them, then, or any subject, honestly, then you need a comma. You leave the past in the past and you move forward without looking back is really what that sentence says. So you need a comma in that particular case. If there was something like I like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches is not a subject. You jelly sandwiches doesn't make sense, so I wouldn't use a comma in that case. As I move forward, there are a couple of places here where you're being unnecessarily wordy, and one of the most frequent ways that students tend to do that is by abusing the word that. So what I would encourage you to do when you're drafting, because remember, editing, drafting, proofreading are separate, just draft out your response and write the word that. Then after you've written it out, as you're editing, go back and read your sentences again and read them without the word that where you've written them. And if they make sense, then you're using that incorrectly. So let's look at this sentence. I received this advice from my grandmother when I was having a rough time moving forward from previous problems I had faced in my life. Makes perfect sense, which means the that you have there doesn't actually belong in that sentence. It's just you being wordy. In general, you want to avoid starting sentences with because. It's not grammatically wrong, but it weakens your sentences and your writing. There was one other place I wanted to talk to you about. It's right here. So you got to be careful with what you attempt to convey with verb tense. And what you're really talking about is something that your grandmother has seen in you this single time. So she's observing this single behavior. She's not observing multiple behaviors. My grandmother saw the way I was acting and the way I reacted to certain situations. And so had seen is not the right verb tense for what you're trying to communicate. If you're having issues with that, I would recommend that you look at, and it seems like it wouldn't make sense to stick it there, but look in the ESL section of rules for writers and it'll explain how that verb tense works. Overall, this was really well done. There are other grammar problems here. I would recommend that you brush up on your understanding of commas, but I don't want to make your video long or overwhelming. I'm looking forward to seeing your future work, and if you have any questions, feel free to stop by my office.